Where today we're going to talk about speaking geek when you're not from the tech world. And we've got the world's foremost expert, in my opinion, on being able to communicate with people from that digital world when you're not necessarily from that market. My guy Mike Albanese is on the line with us. Mike, how are you, my friend?
What is happening?
So I met Mike in Chicago in December in my first ever foray into a digital convention. It was the first time I was ever around that many computer geeks at one time, a little overwhelming. And then I saw Mike, who emceed the event, and he is a comedian that has a tremendous record. We'll get into some of the things Mike has done in the past. Mike, how in the world did you get hooked up with all these smart guys at Digital, Summit?
Well, they were just looking, they put kind of like a big wide net out looking for the smartest person in the world. And obviously I was the first person they chose. So it so happened that I was good at talking to people. No, I think they saw me, somebody who books that, one of the people that booked that event saw me at a club, or I honestly, it's a little bit foggy how they found me, but through a comedy club, somebody saw me and they were like, "Hey, have you ever thought about emceeing?" Because they had never had like a professional MC before.
Right.
And I was like, "Yeah, I do that all the time." And then I did one in Atlanta actually, and then they had a speaker fall out and they needed to fill 45 minutes of time, and they just said, "Hey, why don't you interview the voice of Siri, because she's here." This lady named Susan Bennett, who's
Get out.
one of the nicest people, but she is Siri. It's a real person's voice. And so I was like, they were like, "You got 20 minutes to whip something together." And so I sat with Susan and was just like, "Hey," and she's like mad chill. So she was like, "Yeah, I'm down for whatever." And so I just started asking her these like really ridiculous questions and ended it with her asking if I could have Siri introduce the next speaker. But she kept messing it up like Siri does. And the place went crazy. And then they were like, "Hey, do all of our events for us." And so I've been doing theirs, and I do a wide variety of industries. Like I'm a stand-up comedian. That's my job. But doing an event like this is kind of like a comedian's version of Ubering, where it's like my day job to make a little extra cash, and then I work clubs on the weekends, basically.
I will tell you this, like it's easy for a stand-up guy to get a certain level of cheese when they go do that type of thing. When they go into a corporate event, sometimes it can get a little cheesy. It never got that way with you. And I love that, the way you were able to tie in just being a normal everyday guy with that tech world. How are you able to maintain that comedic, we'll call it integrity, and be true to what you do with your stand-up side, with managing the demands of presenting to corporations and all of these people that are in a whole different world from that?
Well, first of all, thank you for thinking that it didn't get to a cheesy level, because if you came and saw me at a club, you might be like, "This is two separate people."
Right.
We're all different. There's two very different worlds, but, I always try to make sure I focus on their goals and what they want to accomplish, because it's not about me when I'm there. It's about making sure that the people that come to the event get what they need out of it and what they want. They don't walk away going, "Oh, I don't like the way their MC," because I'm like the face of typically the event, because I'm the person that people see the most. But so I also need to just make sure I toe the line wherever I am. But for me, no matter what I do, I always have to be, it's funny first for me. So whatever topic I'm talking on, or whatever industry I'm working or emceeing or performing for, I just make sure that for me, it's, no matter what I do, it's got to be, I have to want to be funny.
How do you,
so whether
how do
I
you
think
prepare for that then, for the topics that you're going to talk about? You just go read the digital headlines, or get into like journals for the industry? Like, how do you know what's going on with the industry for something like a digital summit?
Well, I've been doing marketing and like the digital sphere type stuff for a number of years now, so I kind of stay up to with it, because I'm at a lot of events like that. So it's kind of just now become part of, my lexicon.
Sure.
But typically, if I go into an industry I don't know anything about, like if I'm doing a life insurance forum or law research or whatever it is, I try to just do a little bit of research in advance to kind of know what the hot topics are, because even if I say like one or two things that are very much like industry speak or buzz,
Yeah.
then they assume that I'm an expert in the field because it's just. And I try to be as much of an expert on like one thing as I can when I'm there. So if I could say one thing that they're like, oh, he knows, then I've gotten away with murder.
You could go down the rabbit hole pretty quickly if you try to act like you know. I've learned that myself. You can get trapped pretty quickly and get in a bad place if you try to act like you know too much.
You dip a toe. You're in, you're out. That's how you got to do it.
Mike Albanese joining us. Mike hosts all of the digital summits throughout the country. Give me something that you've learned about digital marketing or the digital world by doing this that's impressed you. What's something that you see through these summits that you're like, man, that's really cool. I'm glad to experience that.
I learned that, and this is just my opinion, but I think the internet is here to stay.
I've
learned that. I don't think it's going anywhere. It's honestly, I feel like that one of the things that I've seen most often is how everybody's really trying to do the same thing, regardless of what business they're in or what funnel they're trying to create for themselves, and it's creating better content than they created before. So, and whatever world that is. So if you're specifically trying to do SEO or you're trying to do customer experience, which I just recently learned is what CX stands for. People kept saying CX, and I was like, I don't speak computer language. And they're
exactly.
Like, customer experience. Like,
Well, you sounded like you knew what you were talking about just now, Mike. You're playing that off real well, bud.
90% confidence, 10% knowledge.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think everyone's just trying, no matter what your specific genre or your specific field is everybody's trying to create some sort of content, whether it be code, whether it be video, photo, blogs, right, whatever it is, it's just trying to be better than you were yesterday. And I feel like that's a really interesting thing to strive for, is just constantly trying to improve. Because I can relate to that perfectly, because I want to make sure that every time I tell a joke, the next joke I write is funnier, so that I'm not regressing. So I think it's all about progressing in the business.
Absolutely. That's great advice, Mike. Thanks for sharing that. So I just put together this week, like I knew you kind of looked familiar when I met you, and I was like, oh, I probably saw him on, a milk carton or something. But then I realized that you are, as you put it, the casting call was for a big dumb white guy. You played a role on B.E.T's The Game, and you were another fish out of water type of thing, just like a stand-up comedian in the digital world. You were a football player, a white guy at an all-black college, and making the team there and fitting in, and it was hilarious when you did that. Are there any similarities between that fish out of water element from that series to what you do now on a daily basis at all these different corporate events?
Yeah, I feel like there's, I don't feel like I'm a fish out of water typically anywhere I go, because I'm typically the only comedian at these events.
Sure.
So people look to me like, oh, this is something different, special, and unique that's happening here. Sure. So for me, I don't feel like odd man out, even though I am, because I do them so often, but also it's, it's just become a part of my routine and who I am. And also, I don't know if I felt that way either playing in that show, because that show was shot in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in Atlanta, and I feel like Atlanta, and I don't think Atlanta gets enough credit for being how diverse of a city it is while being collective. I think that the South has a historical reputation of being, very separate.
Sure.
But that, it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you have, what the color of your skin is in Atlanta. Everybody kind of seems to play on the same team.
Absolutely.
And so, living there for as long as I had, it was, that's just a way of life down there, and it doesn't really. Yeah. I don't think that people give Atlanta that kind of credit. So I want to shout out to Atlanta for making that.
I love Atlanta. I couldn't agree more. I love Atlanta. For sure.
Let me get my coffee. It's coffee talk. I forgot I had a coffee.
Grab your coffee cup. I love it, Mike. So listen, you've got all this stuff going on with the Digital Summit. When do you have time to do, like you said, on the weekends, you're still going to do your comedy clubs and everything. I know you've done some touring outside the Digital Summit. How do you balance all this stuff? You're a busy guy.
No home life. You know, a girlfriend that is constantly asking when I'm coming home, which is great. And, you know, I've been doing it for around 10 years now, so I love it. I love the travel. You know, I have a apartment that I rent. I don't have kids. I don't own a car. It's kind of a little bit of a nomad lifestyle, but it's something that I've become used to and embrace. And honestly, I sometimes feel more comfortable in a hotel than not.
Sure.
But I travel all over the country. I'm in Philadelphia right now. I just got done another digital summit, and I'm doing 6 shows at the Punchline here. Then I go to Minneapolis, and then I'm at the Comedy Corner. And then I do basically, I also produce a large festival, which is, I don't know. You're a great question. I have no idea where I have the time. But I do a big, large comedy festival. It takes over an entire neighborhood. We close down the parking lots and have we have like Janine Garofalo and Ron Funches and a lot of really big names from comedy come through every year. And that's also in Atlanta, which is really fun to go home every year and do that.
What time of year is the festival? Because I saw that on your site. I want to know more about that. Do you know what time of year do you do your festival?
It's normally the last weekend in September. This year it's the 28th through the 30th. And then immediately following that, on October 1st, I go on a 40-day tour of just stand-up comedy. So I'm doing the entire country, basically, a new show, new city every night.
Wow.
So it's gonna be a good time.
Is there a Cleveland date on there, Mike? You coming to see us or what?
It's possible. I think the closest I'm coming is Cuyahoga Falls, maybe.
That's right around the corner. It's down by Akron. That's like LeBron's backyard down there.
Unless you got a hookup, let's come to Cleveland. We'll make it happen sometime late October.
Let me make some calls. Let me find out what we got. We might just be able to make something pop for you there. That'd be awesome. I'd love for people to be able to see you and get a chance to meet you. You're a great guy. So let me ask you this, Mike. Where have you bombed hard? Have you ever bombed something, a joke, even if it's just temporarily? Did you ever bomb harder a digital summit or a club? Where is it? What's the tougher audience between those two? Digital summit or a club where everybody's drinking and they're loose, maybe? Which is the harder audience?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what you want to be considered difficult. Because I bombed at a digital summit in Arizona, and not only did nobody laugh, I got booed, and then they also sent feedback saying that they couldn't believe how nasty of a person I was and all this, because I made a very, very non-confrontational joke about the sheriff, Sheriff Joe or whatever that guy was who had that outdoor prison in the desert. And I just put a picture up on the screen, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know Phoenix was such into camping." That was it. And boy, did they hate me.
Was not a popular joke, huh?
No. But then I've also performed in clubs, and I've been in cities where after the show I've had a gun pulled on me before. So it depends. Normally it's when it's a guy with his girlfriend or wife, and if I make her laugh, some people are a little too self-conscious about a man making their girl laugh. So
exactly. Well, it's hard for us to be bearded and funny, Mike. When you're bearded and funny, there's a target on your back automatically.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, just don't. My advice to comedians: don't get confrontational when they pull a gun on you. Just back up and go, "I'm so sorry."
That is really strong advice, Mike, and I hope everybody takes that to heart. Great advice. Probably the best advice we've gotten from you the whole podcast. Very true.
Absolutely.
Well, Mike, listen, I thank you so much for taking time out to join us. I know you got a busy schedule. You're all over the place. You were great at Digital Summit. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see you again. Probably Chicago's going to be our closest spot again, so hopefully we'll get back out there to see you. If people want to keep tabs on you, is it better social media, website? What's the best way to keep tabs on Mike Albanese?
Either way, all my social media is at Big Man Mike, and my website is inmyownhead.com, which I can't believe I got that URL either. But all that's on my just hit me up on Twitter, Big Man Mike, and it's got links to everything. I have a podcast called Sweet Buddies with my roommates. So whenever I do go home, we record a podcast. It comes out every Thursday, and it's on iTunes and all that. And we reached top 13 all-time podcasts a couple times. We've been in the top 10 before, which is really exciting.
For sure.
And it's really funny. We don't talk anything serious. We just make fun of each other and talk smack.
That's great, man. That's what we need more of. So, Mike, we're going to be checking you out. We'll make sure to get everybody check out that tour schedule. Make sure you know when Mike is coming your way. Support the Comedy Festival in Atlanta that last weekend in September. And, Mike, we wish you the best of luck on your continued journey with the Digital Summit.
Cheers, guys. Hope I see you soon, yeah?
Absolute, bud. We appreciate you. So that's Mike Albanese joining us. Make sure, like we said, follow his social media. Make sure you check out the podcast, check out the website for where he's going to be. And you just learn more about communicating with people in the tech world before you finish your first cup of coffee than your competition will all day. We'll see you next time.